Well, it's finally come to an end, ladies and gentlemen. Invincible has just wrapped up its season finale for season 2, and it's time I recollect my thoughts on the show overall. This season has had its fair share of ups and downs, from a weirdly placed mid-season finale for an 8-episode season that lasted shockingly long, like 5 months to finish up, causing immense panic amongst fans, and some people going so far to say the hype for this show is dead. Like, come on, this show is far from dead. But all this to say, I did enjoy the second season of this show a lot. I have a lot of things to say in terms of characters and plot points, but for the majority of the season, I found myself rejoicing in what the writing had to offer, along with the vicious and violent action the show is known for. Now, there are a few things I didn't enjoy as much, which I will dive into soon to come, but to get started, I wanted to talk firstly about how the characters were handled within this show's second season, because that's where most of my attention was being paid to, since the first season of the show handled its characters really well. Well, most of the characters. Amber. A lot of the situations the characters had found themselves in were very nuanced and down to earth for its violence and superhero comic booky parts. Mark trying to identify with his father and wanting to be a great hero, but having to then fight him at the end because he isn't the person he thought he was. Or Mark's mom, who wants to be there to support her husband and son in their endeavors, but gets tossed aside by Omni-Man and referred to as a pet by the season's finale. Season 1's focus on building these characters' moments is what made it shine for me. Yes, the action was very cool to look at, but what happened to the characters because of these moments is what inspired me to keep watching. Plus, we can all agree that episode 1's final 10 minutes is the greatest plot twist pilot moment like ever made. So going into season 2, there was a lot of stuff to cover. I mean, the finale having Omni-Man destroy most of the city, leaving Mark with extensive injuries, and cutting off his entire family and other heroes, left a vacuum of storytelling that needed to be taken care of. And for the most part, there's a lot of great stuff here. I particularly liked how the show focused on Debbie Grayson's recovery from this event. She married and had Mark with Nolan, had been with him for 20 plus years, and he leaves her in the blink of an eye. Her entire world was shifted upside down, and seeing her try to restart her life again was very well done for this season. Seeing her go to a superhero therapy group to feel somewhat normal about her experiences, but then being shunned by those same people because she was married to Omni-Man was very powerful to see for me.
Your husband's Omni-Man.
I thought he was Nolan Grayson, but that wasn't true. The last 20 years of my life have been a lie. I wish he was dead. I wish I could grieve and move on, but I can't.
I wish he was dead too, but not for your sake. You shouldn't come back to the group. Wouldn't be a safe space with you there.
I didn't know who he was.
You should have.
Knowing that her indirect involvement caused so much harm, yet she had no idea and doesn't deserve to be blamed for the actions of someone else, was very telling to see. Let alone how hard it must have been for her to see that Mark now has a half-brother named Oliver, who she needs to take care of. Another piece of Nolan that she can't seem to get rid of, no matter how hard she tries. Then by the finale, we truly see how it's all affected her well-being, since Angstrom Levy breaks her arm, almost kills her, and now here's Mark wants to drop out of school. I'm glad they gave a lot of nuance to Debbie this season, seeing how anxious and angry she truly is at everything that's happened to her recently. She has no powers, yet continues to persevere and be as strong as Invincible when she needs to be. But the layers they gave her was really powerful stuff to watch for me, since it's rare we see cracks in a strong parent's backbone. She's the type of character that most strong female characters should try and be. This then leads to why looking at most of the season's events from Mark's perspective was really well done too. Starting the season out with Mark trying to embrace college life, but superhero stuff just kept getting in the way, is something I always enjoy seeing in these types of shows. The reason I enjoy it so much is because it shows how much of a struggle being a superhero truly is, with the balancing act of a normal life and being a superhero being extremely difficult. But the beginning of the season also found Mark in a very bad place mentally, having had to deal with his father being a lunatic and beating him to the brink of death, leaving Mark in a constant state of trying to prove to everyone that he won't end up like his father. Putting all of his attention into this is what ruined his normal life, since he was always trying to do good as Invincible, and not dealing with all the trauma he had endured. He pushed away most of his normal life activities and friends like Amber and William in order to push aside all of his issues. And the show does a great job of seeing Mark's mental anguish as the season progresses. One of my favorite parts of season 2 was when Mark meets Omni-Man again and is forced to see his dad have a new new life, a new wife, and a kid, and that he's now a changed man, all within the span of like 2 seconds.
I missed you.
I really did love this scene. It shows just how mad Mark is at his father, yet all he wants is to be in his presence again, because at the end of the day, Omni-Man is his father, and no trauma can miss the comfort of being around a parent. And I mean, the final fight scene with Nolan and Mark fighting the other Viltrumites was just... like, it's a perfect action sequence of no comparison. Speaking of action scenes, this season has a plethora that were very well made. Obviously, the attack on Thraxa with the Viltrumites was great, but the fight on the spaceship where the Guardians and Mark must attack the Sequids and stop them from entering Earth was awesome. Also, when the Lizard League attacks the remaining Guardians on Earth and Rex takes a fucking bullet to the brain and survived was crazy. Also, that small girl trying to expand into one villain when he just eats her alive was also some of the most gruesome shit I've ever seen. And that final fight between Mark and Angstrom Levy was immaculate. The voice acting, the animation, everything about that scene was insanely epic. Plus, the amount of blood being poured everywhere, especially on his body, was freaking gruesome. This scene had me in a chokehold from start to finish. I think we all need to give Steven Yeun his props because my god. This man's delivery in the booth for this character is astounding. The way his voice starts to break as he starts to realize what he did, especially when he says,
I thought you were stronger.
like, fuck. This is heavy. And I also love how deep it affected Mark after this. How he couldn't handle his emotions and let the anger got the better of him. How this one moment will question whether or not he's becoming just like his dad, or if he was justified in his actions or not. I really loved how much he talked to himself trying to justify his actions. It's something everyone has done before, I'm sure. Where you've done something against your principles, but you just keep thinking it over and over again about ways to justify the bad behavior. This scene is a 10 out of 10. No questions about it. Plus, it was pretty awesome that they had Josh Keaton play an off-brand Spider-Man. It's always great to hear that dude's voice. A lot of the story arcs done this season, I thought were done pretty well. Considering the show balances out multiple different storylines this season, I thought it was well handled for the most part. I'd say Angstrom Levy could have done with more screen time in my honest opinion though. I mean, he was basically there for episode 1, and then we didn't see him again until episode 8. So dude kind of came and went throughout this season. The stuff with the Viltrumites is always the best parts in my opinion. Like I mentioned before, seeing Mark and Nolan go up against the Viltrumites in episode 4 was excellent. Seeing Alan get more screen time this season was great too. How he relates to the Viltrumites is going to be very interesting to see play out as the 3rd season starts to come out, which I hope is pretty soon. Seeing him grow stronger after he died, being able to hold his own against Anissa, who just bodied Mark 2 minutes beforehand, was wild. It'll be fun to see what stunts Alan and Omni-Man get to when they need to break out of the Viltrumite jail come season 3. General Krieg is a nice addition to the long list of new characters introduced this season, along with Anissa. He's one of the stronger Viltrumites that has Nolan in custody, but he's voiced by Clancy Brown, so that makes it like 10 times better. We also get introduced to a Viltrumite turned good guy named Great Thetis, a Viltrumite who started a resistance movement called the Coalition, who is giving orders to Alan. He's also voiced by Optimus Prime himself, Peter Cullen, so it'll be interesting to see what his role will play in season 3 as well. May it be good or bad? I'm very excited to see how Mark and Eve's relationship will play out come season 3 onward, since this huge bombshell was dropped on Mark in the finale of the season.
I love you, Mark. I have for a very long time, and when you disappeared, I was devastated. I should have told you.
I think everyone and their mothers wanted Amber out of the picture after season 1, yet we were strung alongside another season of Amber and Mark shenanigans, and although it was tedious at times, the show did give the relationship a nuanced exit instead of just ignoring it how most fans probably wanted it to be after season 1. A lot of side characters got room to grow this season too, specifically Rex and Donald, Cecil's assistant. Speaking on Rex first, in the first season, he was pretty much a huge jackass, a dude dude with no maturity who emotionally manipulated every girl he was with, who was constantly goofing around and making jokes. Yet this season, the show did a good job of making the audience want to root for him. In episode 5 specifically, seeing him go toe-to-toe with 2 members of the Lizard League by himself, get shot in the face, get up and fight again was insane to see. We also see how he is comfortable talking with Eve and Mark now, building upon those relationships that he hurt in the past and apologizing for them. It was really nice to see. And for Donald, his realization that he's more robot than human was awesome. My favorite scene has to be when he helps William's boyfriend talk him out of jumping off the roof of his college.
Each time I died, each time I was put back together, it was because I helped make this world a little better. You did the same when you fought back against Sinclair, when you saved Invincible and William's lives. We're not our bodies. We're the decisions we make, the lives we change, the people we love, or who love us.
This show does a really great job of providing authentic and nuanced scenes. The writing really is on another level here because you can tell it's made by people who truly want to see the superhero genre still succeed and avoid stupid tropes that make no sense or characters who are very one-dimensional. The show continues to elevate the bar of what good superhero TV and animation can be. If I had to critique anything about the show, well, first and foremost, why the hell was it split into 2 parts? I'm not gonna drag this on for too long, since everyone on Twitter or YouTube has already complained about it in the past, but seriously, I didn't even remember the second half of this season was coming out until I saw a YouTuber post about episode 5 on my YouTube feed. Cutting the show in half when it's only 8 episodes, after waiting 3 years for the second season, was the biggest blue balls from a show I've ever seen. Amazon must have forced the animators to churn something out, and that's why it came out in 2023 instead of having it all come out at once. So hopefully, since season 3 is being worked on right away, that the season will come out all at once with no breaks. If shows start having mid-season finales and ads, then streaming is just cable again, and that will tear me to shreds. In terms of the show itself, I would have liked to see more of Omni-Man. I know that this isn't his show, but it felt like only episode 4 had a lot to show with Nolan's character. After that, he's reduced to a few scenes on his spaceship with the Viltrumites, and that's it. Especially after the final scene of the 8th episode where he admits to missing his wife. I am excited to see how much they play into the Nolan redemption arc, if they try to at least. To me, I felt like Nolan's character shift was kind of quick. I mean, in episode 8, you could tell he was conflicted, but by episode 4 of season 2, it seemed he had already made up his mind about being against the Viltrumites, and I hope to see more of a conflict within him in season 3. And lastly, I hope the show finds a consistent plot thread to follow if there is going to be a main villain. I don't mind them building up stuff in the background like with the Viltrumite stuff, but Angstrom Levy was very prominent in episode 1, disappeared for half the show, only to show up here and again in a few scenes, and then pulls a syndrome and holds all of Mark's family hostage to be the big bad again in episode 8. It just felt kinda rushed, especially because his motivation was that Mark ruined his life, when it was clearly he himself who ruined it, but I digress. I know he was just a crazy dude anyways, who was cracked out and not in the right headspace, but in my opinion, I would have liked to see more of Angstrom, but who knows? Maybe they'll bring him back, but I hope they don't, because Mark killing Angstrom was a very defining moment for his character that I feel it would take away from that moment if they did bring him back. But other than those little issues, I think the second season is a really well-made piece of television that excites me to see what's in store for season 3. This show makes me want to read the comics, but I'm forcing myself not to because I don't want to be spoiled for future plot points. Plus, there's like a bazillion comics. The cast, the action, the writing, everything about this show is made with an insane amount of quality that I appreciate the show even more for it. In a day and age where media is just mass produced, it's nice seeing a show that's given a lot of care by the people who are making it. But hey, that's just my thoughts. What are yours? Did you enjoy the finale of Invincible? Let me know down below. If you guys want to support the channel and see more stuff from me, then click the link down below and check out my Patreon. I'll see you all in another video very soon. Peace out.